Hey friend, listen. I know the world is scary right now. Corruption, war, inflation, demographics, degeneracy, disease, unrest, hatred, and despair. We didn't come here to tell you how it is, but that it's going to get way better.
Got a good thing coming, and it's all I need. Everything I wanted, just wait and see.
Better by Bitcoin.
Good.
I just feel like I'm coming back from Vegas, baby. Let's fucking go, dude.
Hey, man, if that doesn't get you jazzed every time,
Just getting drunk, dude. Let's go.
every time.
All right. Well, I don't host. I'm a bad host. Forgive me, Lord, for I'm about to sin. Welcome to the show. We're gonna do Max clickbaity.
It's
What?
really important.
It's close enough.
Yeah. Okay. It's all good.
Okay. We're doing Max clickbaity bullshit today. We're going to talk about a bunch of shit none of us know or are qualified to understand or could possibly accurately predict. But we know that you out there listening would like to get some alpha. You've made a fucking terrible, terrible mistake clicking on this show.
Correct.
So, we're going to talk about what max pain looks like for the cycle. If you have ever traded markets, particularly Bitcoin, you have no doubt come to the conclusion that it prefers to hurt the most amount of people for the longest amount of time. And these little run-ups are short-lived, and I can tell you right now that bull markets are far more challenging than bear markets. If this is your first bull market, welcome, congratulations. You're probably going to fuck something up pretty terribly here in the next 6 months.
This guy.
Before we started rolling, all of us were talking about how we've personally taken out max credit card debt and are for sure going to get liquidated by Chase, Citi, Barclays,
Not financial advice,
Capital One.
but definitely fun. Definitely fun.
Capital One is the worst credit card company I have ever been involved with. I would highly recommend taking out maximum loans with them and buying Bitcoin.
I just want to know which one we think is going to fail first so we can get all of our loans there. I feel like that's the one to think about. I was reading Wells Fargo's not doing great. So they seem like the prime candidate for, egregious, stupid financial decisions. But, that's just my
I actually really like that strategy. There's got to be some autists out there that can figure out which bank is likely to fail, but we need to make sure they're small enough that they actually can fail. So
This is true. Like Silicon Valley Bank, super small bank, legit. Like saw that coming a mile away.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with Silicon Valley Bank was J.P. Morgan wanted it. Like Jamie Dimon just wanted it, so they could let it fail. Then he bought it, right? So that's what we need to target.
And it didn't even fail.
What does
It was
Dimon want?
it was assassinated. It was taken out back and shot in the head.
Yeah, and then he got a distressed asset and built it back up, and then now it's got the whole client list. So that's what you got to look. You just look at corruption.
I do think
idiots. God, what are we
it
doing?
was taken out back and it double tapped itself in the back of the head, but that's a whole another thing. I'm just trying to get some buzzwords and Epstein in here at least once, so that way we can get kicked off of YouTube. So
Trump,
Yeah.
Trump, Democrats, Triggity Trump, maximum pain, Epstein Island, COVID,
the Jews control Bitcoin. Do we
COVID,
know?
yeah, Jews. Fuck, how would I forget the Jews?
How did you forget the Jews?
oh
The
man,
Jews.
Strike on our channel for sure.
On either side, it's a
Um,
perfect buzzword because it pisses everybody off.
We're
I
gonna
gotta
be-
I gotta pause myself for 2 seconds. But can you guys dive in?
Can we dive into that? Yes. Yes,
out.
let's put that up.
He's out, bro. Oh, all right. Well, sorry. Like I said, I've never hosted before. It's not going well. All right. So so the topic is maximum pain in this bull market. JD and I were talking about this a little bit earlier today, and I have maybe a semi-spicy take here, or it could be just lukewarm, depending on what's most uncomfortable for you. I think that max pain this cycle is actually a stairway to heaven. I think that if Bitcoin just slow crawls to $1 million in the next 8 years, and we don't see a retracement of more than 25 or 30%, I actually think that is maximum pain. because there's a number of reasons, but you're going to have a bunch of impatient Bitcoiners who aren't satisfied with their stack, who are expecting massive drawdowns. And I define Max Payne here as the most Bitcoiners losing the most Bitcoin. At this point, we're all used to the drawdowns. You know, even people who are in this market, if you've been orange pilled by anybody, they have without question drilled into your brain that it's a volatile asset, that it's going to go up and down. And so everybody's kind of expecting this volatility. And certainly the Bitcoiners are sitting around just like, yeah, let's bring on some cheap corn, bro. It's going to buy some cheap corn. But what's going to cause the most pain is there's no more cheap corn. It's never happening. And you're going to try to sell at some arbitrary fucking number that you think is high, and you're expecting some 30, 40, 50% drawdown. You're going to owe a bunch of tax. The drawdown's never going to come. And it's going to do this for years. And you're going to get a bunch of impatient Bitcoiners who either can't afford their lifestyle, don't have income, expect a massive drawdown, impatient, whatever. And they're going to end up in 8 years with significantly less corn than if they had just held on. Or if we had even had, let's say we have a massive run up. You know, it's at this point, it's kind of getting easier, right? Like, it's easier to predict. If we have some massive run up that happens very, very quickly, let's say we go to 444K, you know, whatever, over the next 9 months, like, it's going to be pretty fucking obvious that that's a point at which you're going to sell. And the key thing there being the time frame. If it goes to 444 over the next 2 or 3 years, less obvious. If it does it next week, for sure, a bunch of people are selling. So I don't think it's going to happen. But if that does happen, it's obvious to sell. It's going to crash. We buy back more. Everybody's used to it. It's the same old game. Yay. Bitcoiners are happy. They end up with more coin. It's not Max Payne. I actually think that Max Payne is just an incredibly boring, incredibly slow drive all the way to $1 million. The second reason it's Max Payne is, you know, you've got the people who need to sell the Bitcoin to fund their life. And then you've got the people who don't want to sell it and try to borrow against it. But nobody with half a brain wants to borrow against an asset that's at all-time highs all of the time. That's just at all-time highs for like 5 years straight. like that's a little too scary. So, you know, then it gets to $1 million and everybody's like, okay, we're safe here. It's cool. It's been grinding up there. Everybody's going to take out a loan at $1 million and it's going to go down 50% in 8 or 9 years. That is absolute Max Payne scenario. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's a super interesting idea because the 4-year cycle from the halving, once it happened the third time, to me, it became too obvious where I plotted it out at that point, right? I think it was November 2021 when the whole Bitcoin world was like, we're ripping up to 100K. It's happening right now. And everyone was on board. And I think I saw one tweet that said something similar to what you just said, which was, how does everyone get screwed on this?
Exactly.
Like, everyone was agreed. And everything I knew about investing is when everyone's agreed on something, it's wrong, right?
Yep.
Right? Especially something speculative, especially something volatile. And I was still caught up in it. And I wasn't levered, so it wasn't devastating or anything. But it was devastating from the fact that I had liquidated other assets to put into it because I believed in it long term. I believed in the fundamentals. And I'm looking at this like, oh my gosh, I'm about to like triple my net worth in 6 months or whatever. And then at that moment, what was it, 64? That crazy false top. And then it just like tanks. And then it just like bleeds down and down and down. And then there's the Max Payne there of like, well, this could go down to 8,000 again, right? You know, and then a lot of people didn't buy back in. It comes back. And so that sort of volatility, like you said, is kind of expected. And so it can't be Max Payne once it's expected. Yeah. And it's so easy to lay those market cycles over each other, see the similarities and say, all right, that's what's going to happen again. So I'm kind of with you that the slow crawl up is the most painful, because if we're not talking about the pain of retail, because retail, if we did another boom and bust, retail would be the ones, you know, new retail would be the ones getting screwed by it. The Bitcoiners would be fine. But that sort of volatility now is just exciting to this community, right? Yeah. It's kind of just like, oh, here we go again. I was here for 80% drawdowns. This is 35%. You haven't seen anything, you know, you children. That's kind of what this community is all about now. That slow crawl up, especially the other aspect of that stairway to heaven pain scenario is people getting on board, corporations getting on board, sovereign nations, you know, to a smaller extent getting on board, but the normies coming in and having it just work for them. And I think that our small community who's been through the pain of up and downs, of screaming it into what seems like the void over and over again, that this is the future of the world. Once that actually starts to happen, some of that identity gets lost a little bit. Like, what do you know, there's like a personal pain to that. Like, we were this small condensed community and now everyone just has, you know, $300,000 Bitcoin and that, you know, they've got their sats and it goes up by 2%, you know, a month or whatever. That I don't know. I think existentially as a Bitcoiner, that doesn't sound that great, you know. Selfishly, there's something great about feeling like I'm right and everyone else is wrong. And when everyone else gets on board, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, well said. There's going to be a bunch of people who just can't handle how boring it is, can't handle that they're not cool anymore, can't handle that, you know, there's going to be a bunch of impatient noobs who trade themselves out of their Bitcoin stack if Bitcoin just gently goes to $1 million over 10 years.
Yeah.
Speaking of impatient noobs who just jump back in randomly after jumping out, sorry, had to handle something quickly, but I found a friend.
He brought another impatient noob. They travel in they're pack animals. They're herd creatures.
Oh man. It's so I heard nothing about the Max Pen you guys were talking about before. Apologies on that. So if we recover stuff, I'm sorry.
Basically, quick recap for you guys. I don't know if you heard what we were saying, Anton, but the idea is the most amount of pain for the most amount of people is a slow and steady grind to $1 million over the next 8 to 10 years. Bitcoiners are expecting volatility at this point. They're ready for a massive drawdown. They're ready to take out leverage at the bottom. The market is more mature for all of those things. And the reality is that would probably net most Bitcoiners more Bitcoin. But that's not likely going to happen. In my opinion, the most painful scenario is this slow grind up where we don't see a 25 or 30% reduction. You're going to see people try to trade in and out of it. They're going to get wrecked in the chop. They're going to owe tax that they don't manage very well. And
don't say
at the
that.
end of
I don't
8
want to
to
have
10
that
years, they're going to have a lot less Bitcoin. That's the core thesis. Where are you at with it, Anton?
Yeah, the last 10 years, it was about how many dollars can you get for the Bitcoin that you had. Like, I watched this YouTube short. This guy walks up to a house, knocks on the door, it's a huge mansion. And he's like, how'd you get all your money to buy this mansion? And this lady comes out and she's like, oh, I was early in Bitcoin. That lady sold all of her Bitcoin. She has no Bitcoin. She has a giant mansion. That was the you know, how you had the status of wealth over the last 10 years. The next 10 years will be how much Bitcoin can you get? Because as Bitcoin gets more and more expensive, people are going to have less and less and less of it. And all the suckers that think that they're rich because the price went to 125,000 and sell it all and then try to rebuy back in. And now all of a sudden the price is 250,000. They're going to have a lot less Bitcoin. And that's just going to keep happening over and over and over again as the price continues to climb. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if the time period is 8 years or not. I don't know. I can't predict that. It feels like right now that Bitcoin could go to $1 million by the end of the year.
I think that it's this market is far more liquid and there's far more TradFi shenanigans going on in it. I mean, you all you got to do is look at the chart. If you pull up the Bitcoin chart, do like a monthly or weekly candles, put it in log, and you see these very natural, very organic, like waves up with attention, and then it crashes back down as people get fearful, and it waves up with attention and crashes back down. It feels very organic. It feels very circular. We are in a completely different paradigm from 16K at this recent bottom all the way up. It's basically now this like linear sort of channel pattern It's just kind of straight up and to the right, consolidates, straight up and to the right, consolidates. It feels much more sophisticated. It's much more programmatic. It's much less organic. It's like, the professionals have arrived. They are doing everything they can to acquire as much Bitcoin in this market as humanly possible. And they control it. They control that fear. They control that emotion. They bottle it up. They sell it to other people. They profit from it themselves, however you want to look at it. So it's just, we're just not in the same dynamic. We're not in the same market. And I don't think there's enough excess capital sloshing around the system to push us up that far. Maybe like 400, 500 would be like, holy shit. But the ability for the market to short this is greater than it's ever been, for big money to come in and pile on and push it down. It's just so different than it was in 2017. Like if people weren't around then, it's like 2017, this thing was $1,000. Like the whole market was hundreds of billions. I mean, dudes who took out some leverage and were messing around, who were just kind of OG whales, could move the market on a weekend by themselves. Like, that is just not the paradigm we're in anymore. This is not a retail story anymore. Like, it's over, it's done. You had your shot from $0 to $100,000. The ball has been handed off. It's the rules are different, man. We're playing the Navy SEALs at this point. We're not playing, each other.
I'm curious your take on this, Corey, of like,
JD, you are muted.
I can hear him.
Fantastic.
I hear him too.
Oh,
Anton is also.
Oh, we can hear it.
Too.
We can hear
Nope,
each other.
Nothing. Boo. Boo.
Oh.
Terrible host. Terrible host. Somebody kick me out.
Hilarious.
I hired
your
a
lighting's
terrible
too
technical. Fuck, Corey's muted too. Am I the
but-
only one who's muted?
Yes.
No, you just can't hear us.
You just can't hear
You
us.
can't hear us. We can hear you.
Wow.
So the
Good episode,
question,
guys.
the question I have for you, Corey, is do you have kind of a take on this of like the beach ball is being pushed down by institutions, right? And so if the beach ball is being pushed down by institutions, like how do we see things like we saw this weekend where we see stuff kind of going up and we see stuff where we have these big like price moves? Like, did somebody like miss something, or like they playing inside baseball back and forth? Like, how does that work?
I don't know that they can control price action on the level that we saw this weekend, right? From 108 to 124, was it? And then back down to 117. I'm not sure that they care at that level. I think they're, with the amount of money that they have auto buys and they have other ways to get in to make sure that it doesn't dip. But I think those little dalliances up don't bother them that much. I think the institutional buyers that realize that this is hard money, which is, I think most of them, right? The like the Fidelities and BlackRocks that are putting major money into this, they understand that this is hard money, that it's more scarce than gold, that when Uganda discovers 31 million tons or whatever that was, $12 trillion worth of gold, that everything they hold in gold is threatened all of a sudden. Like, that's downward pressure on a beach ball. There's not that much that they can do. They can short it, right? And you can make, when you're big enough, you can make a big enough short against a major buying position that basically guarantees your purchase price. But you can't do that. You can't do a ton of that because it's you have limitless losses to the upside if it runs. So I think there's temporary things they can do. There's Wall Street moving things that, price action things that they can do. But to me, it's much more like Zach was saying, that it's all about what they're trying to get their hands on as much Bitcoin as possible. And if you're buying hundreds of millions a day and you can move the price down $3,000, that helps you a lot. Obviously, but I don't think they can get it below 100, right? I think there's still enough liquidity in the market that wants discounted Bitcoin that it has me leaning more and more towards Zach's stairway to heaven theory. As long as we don't go too high too quickly, that's where I think the institutions, they don't want it to get to 250, by the end of August, because they've got all this other money flowing into it. I think they just keep putting the pressure on in small ways like that. But But that control where you don't get as much of a blow off top means you probably don't get nearly as much of a retracement. And like Zach was saying with 2017 and I was saying with 2021, there wasn't the steady daily recurring buy of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars from institutional buyers that just, they click buy, they click their limit buy, they set it up. Obviously it's not a limit buy, but it just keeps flowing in at the price. And if it dips a couple thousand, all of a sudden their actuarial tables trigger even more hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's the type of thing where the bottom was able to fall out before that. I don't think it's able to in the same way, unless, like we've been saying, it goes up over 400 by the end of the year or something like that. Then you might see some massive selling. I just think as we talk about max pain, and Zach defined it as the max pain for Bitcoiners, that slow, steady work up. If you broaden that to max pain for people who are right on the outside, or maybe a year away from getting into Bitcoin, maybe 2, like everyone that's going to come into it, that steady climb up, you think about the other assets that they're holding, like equities, which are priced absolutely insanely right now. Like all equities, they're priced like we're about to have a major recession, but we keep just printing money and pouring money into it. So your purchasing power is getting eroded. The real estate market actually is finally going down, which I didn't think would happen, for another little while, but prices are actually falling. Things are staying on the market for an extended period of time. And the value that people thought they had in their homes, that just, hundreds of thousands of dollars that just kind of appeared out of thin air for homeowners in the past couple of years, is starting to get threatened. And a lot of people who have decent debt will still have some of that chunk there. But for the people who haven't jumped in yet, it's, the Bitcoiners are pricing houses in Bitcoin already. But for people who are looking at what are the assets that are actually going to rise over the next 7 years, they're going to be holdouts. And, especially boomers who are controlling a lot of the money. Maybe equities are going to turn around. Maybe the bond market will come back. Maybe the Japan reverse carry trade will come back. Maybe real estate will come back. And right now, looking forward at all of those things, especially with the big, beautiful bill, I think we all had kind of a 6-month dalliance that there might be fiscal responsibility coming. And then that notion got shattered just immediately. Just kind of as soon as they could, they shattered that notion. They wasted no time. So now you're like, okay, so trillions more coming in, trillions more have to be printed. The deficit's not going anywhere. The way they're handling it, we're probably not having a fiscal conservative coming into office anytime in the next 8 years. So if you look at that and let's like a blanket generalization, but let's say all of that is putting major downward pressure on the purchasing power of your dollar and the valuing of equities and the valuing of real estate, which is where most of the wealth of the country is held. If you have the stairway to heaven thing that Zach's talking about, the longer you hold on to your failing asset, the less Bitcoin you have. And even when you sell it, then you're buying an asset that's now kind of creeping up instead of what we know, which is like, oh my gosh, I'm super rich. And then you sell and remake your stack. So I think it's not only max pain for Bitcoiners, but it's this new world reality where the longer you wait to get on, the more, not only do you get less Bitcoin for the amount of money that you had, but the wealth that you thought you had is being eroded faster than ever before. I think that's a terribly painful scenario. I think you could see retirees who thought they were completely set for 20 years, 10 years in, saying, what happened? My 401k was worth $2 million. What happened? I owned NVIDIA. I thought we were good.
Yeah, I think that's well said with regards to the other side of it, which is people still in stocks, because there's no obvious signal for them. It's like they just wake up once a year and they go, oh, Bitcoin's kind of up to another 30% this year. And then 10 or 15 years go by and there's 50% of their wealth has just been, evaporated. 50% of their opportunity to maintain or increase, purchasing power. So I do think it's max pain for most people. Sorry if I missed a bunch of genius comments there. I don't know what happened.
I have a friend who's still in an altcoin. He's in Monero, and I'm on the thread with him, and he was telling the whole group how well he's done in Monero. And so I was on the text thread that we're on. I had Grok make a little graph to show how much he's lost in terms of Bitcoin by staying in it, and it's like he just couldn't see it. And I like to remind myself about stupid shit that I bought over the last 5 years for whatever price it was. And had I put it in Bitcoin, how much money it would be worth. And pretty soon the stock enjoyer is going to be doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Have you
and the
guys-
real estate holder. But because no one sheds a tear for the day trader or for the Wall Street guy, but for the couple or the young family who put all of their savings into their home because they just had to, right? Over the past 4 or 5 years, you bought it what felt like the top of the market, and then it kept going up, and that was just all you could do. Is the only way to buy a home because we're absurdly overpriced. And then you think, okay, well, it just keeps going up. Is it just going to keep going up? I don't think there's going to be a real estate crash because it's the middle class's wealth. Like I just think they'll pump the money into the market. Every home relief program that's been pitched in the past year and probably for the past 20 years is all on the demand side, which just raises prices.
Real estate has to be. I'm kind of talking out of my ass here. Maybe we can grok this or whatever. But like, real estate mortgage lending has to be, if not the biggest, like the second biggest vehicle for money to find its way into the system. Like that is
number
how
one
they
money
print
printer.
most of the money. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
the number one money printer. Yeah, no, I've researched this well. It's like when you get, like at some point, if we get away from a fiat system, there will be a rude awakening for everyone who realized that when you had a Fannie or Freddie mortgage, you weren't actually getting the money. If you walk into Wells Fargo or Chase or any of the mortgage lenders, they're not lending you the money. They don't even have the money. They carry the paper for 2 weeks, and then they send it to the Fed, and then the Fed invents the money, and then gives it back to them. Right? And that's the mechanism. That's how almost everyone in the country has bought a home for the past 25 years. That's insanity. That's not real.
How insidious is this that they say this is the American dream, right? They try to they sell us this is the American dream, but really what they were doing was they were presenting a prison cell, and they were like, how can we convince them to walk into this willingly? That's how fucking insidious that shit is. Like it is totally unconscionable. Mortgages in the United States are the mechanism by which we are enslaved. And it's also the mechanism by which all of the money finds its way into the system and makes all of the other money more expensive. It's so fucked up.
Exactly. But this is why, if we bring it back to Max Payne, not to dominate this point, but that's it's worked for a really long time. It's so hard to orange pill my dad because he came up through the money printing and was a productive member of society and made enough money to retire. So he's like, what do I care? It works to some extent. But for the people who are on the upswing of that, looking at their future and saying, I did it. I bought the house. I have the well-paid job. This is how I get to retirement. It's not the same reality, right? The stairway to heaven of Bitcoin it's just eating everybody's lunch, but no one gets as much of the lunch as they hoped they did. And resettling around reality when you've been pretending there's all this value in the world is going to be really painful. There's no way around that.
Yeah, it's the entire world flipping from Keynesian to Austrian economic understandings of how the world works. It's literally real value versus paper value, and that's going to come in a Max Payne way, I think, to every single person. Anton, I'm curious your take on kind of like that, right? Like what is, because I feel like that is Max Payne, is like that understanding, like hitting people in the face. But what do you think that looks like? Like, where do you think people who still have a Keynesian economic outlook of the world and they're looking at Bitcoin and they're going to make some foolish decisions in the next 6 to 18 months, how does that look like in your mind?
I want to slander boomers real quick because they are the ultimate Keynesians. Boomers think that they're geniuses because they bought their house in 1975 and made 100x on it. You see these memes of boomers living on cruise ships. They've got a day drinking buzz and they're just hitting a digital slot machine, just partying their balls off. They got 5 more years to live. They sold their house. They didn't give it to their kids. They left no inheritance. They have no concern for generational wealth, and they just want to spend it to zero. and they're the ones that created this. They were there when we were taking off the gold standard, and they've benefited from it. And everybody knew that all these bills were going to be coming due when you make money debt, and they did it anyway, and they don't care.
No, they
And
don't
he-
even
and here we are.
understand. They don't even understand. I think I think the percentage of boomers who actually understand how the printing works and who understand the fractional reserve nature of the system. I think that percentage is like less than 1/2% of boomers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Mark Twain quote, right? It's I'm going to butcher it, but it's very hard to get someone to believe something when their paycheck depends on believing the opposite. And I think it's a little bit less insidious than that with boomers, because no one was arguing apart from like Rand Paul, right? Was anyone arguing? Like there were gold bugs here and there who kind of foresaw this from a long way away, but they underestimated how long we could keep the Ponzi scheme of fiat printing going. I think it's just unexamined. Like, why would they examine it? Their number goes up every year, with the exception of 2008, basically, and maybe the .com crash if they were invested in that way. Their number just kind of kept going up. And as long as you kept getting moderate raises, your house value would go up, your stock portfolio would go up, and your life and your purchasing power over time would probably outpace. If you were in the asset class, it would probably outpace inflation. So you felt like your life was getting better over time. And that house of cards has come down in a major way with 25% inflation in 6 years and 13 trillion in printing. We basically just said, this worked before. What if we did it 100 times as quickly as we did it before? And that's painful, right? There's just no way around that. Reality, the brick wall of reality has arrived.
Yeah, the Fed told everybody that they were going to make inflation 2%. And they said, we can hold it there. And then everybody was told that they would get roughly an 8% annualized return in the stock market. And so boomers just did the math and they said, I'm just going to make a shit ton of money if I just hold money in stocks or if I buy bonds or whatever. And I'll retire, I'll be good to go. Who cares what happens after me? Who cares?
I think we need more boomer slander, personally. I tried to. It's kind of what's that phrase for people who've been like imprisoned and then they develop a relationship with their captor?
Stockholm
syndrome.
Exactly.
Epstein syndrome. Sorry, different.
No, that's being raped. No, like I tried to, when I was kind of having my own personal like financial renaissance of like understanding how this stuff was working. I tried to explain it to my mom one time, and she couldn't grasp. I did the math. I went and did the math for her, and I said, how much did they take out of your check of Social Security, like roughly from when you were working to when you retired? And I did the math, and basically, like if she had just taken that money and invested it in the S&P, just basic shit, she'd be, she'd have over $1 million. Like the numbers were crazy, $1 million, $2 million, something like that. And that'd be obviously plenty enough for her to retire on. But instead she, gets her pittance from Social Security or whatever. And I came to the realization, and I tried to tell her, like, they literally stole your money. Like they took it from you. They told you that you were going to be taken care of and that you needed them to take care of you because you couldn't do it yourself. And then they stole your money. And now you don't have any, and you're still defending what they did because you still don't think that you were capable of taking care of yourself. Like this shit is, it's just not okay. Like it's just not, I'm not okay with this shit.
I have a question for the group in terms of, let's just keep the boomer slander going. But when the brick wall of reality arrives for the fiat system, there's going to be some bag holders of stuff that 20 years ago was really valuable that is worth zero. Like I've like golf course property, remote golf course property.
Hey, there's always a buyer for remote golf course properties.
Well, yeah, you and I will be buying it for pennies on the dollar. Don't get me wrong. People will still live there.
Same.
But like the second home market, right? Like
Yes,
I went to a
100%.
bachelor party in
No, we're talking
Breckenridge.
about like assets. Others like Beanie Babies.
I'm talking about
and
assets. I'm
dogs.
talking about people that like I finally got the asset, and this will hold its value. I went to a bachelor party in Breckenridge at a non-ski in, ski out, big house, and it was on the market for $14 million. And every house on the street was on the market. And this was only like 2 or 3 years ago. I'm thinking about things like that, right? Like when the reality of like how much money there actually is becomes apparent. Who are the bag holders?
I think this is actually a really good thing though. Like honestly, stocks, who gives a fuck? Like get wrecked, you know, like fuck off. But housing, if housing stays neutral to down over the next, you know, in real terms, it's not going down in nominal terms. Like we all know that's going up. But let's say it stays neutral to down in real terms. I think that's actually fantastic because you're quelling the rage at the bottom of the pyramid. Like if more people can afford more housing and it's cheaper in real terms, great. Honestly, fantastic. And if that has to come out of, you know, stock market bag holders, and then all the rest of the energy gets sent to the Bitcoiners, or Bitcoin absorbs that monetary premium from the real estate market, like the great. Like I'm all for that. I'm into it.
That's the way that technology is supposed to make. That's what's supposed to happen. Technology is supposed to create deflation, essentially. I mean, look at televisions. A television in the 1980s or early 90s was more expensive than a television is today, and yet prices have been inflating the whole time. The reason is because the whole production pipeline of televisions got more streamlined, and then the technology just made it all a little bit cheaper. That same thing could happen with housing. So as technology, you know, whether it's like 3D printed housing, or I don't know, I can't even imagine all the ways that it's going to get better. Theoretically, housing should get nominally cheaper over time, theoretically. Yeah. So, but okay, but let me give one more example though. So you were saying, what are the things that are, you know, inflated right now? They're going to come down. I'll give one example. Okay. Adam Carolla, the comedian, he bought a Porsche that was driven by Paul Newman, and he paid $4 million for it when he bought it. A few years later, it was worth $8 million. I have no idea how much it's worth now. It's probably worth 12 or something like that. That car should be a depreciating asset because the car, he literally has to have a crew of people working full time to maintain all these different vehicles that he has. It shouldn't just be going up in value forever. So there are things right now that are being used to preserve wealth that are just going up as we've seen this rampant inflation. But eventually those things are going to come down. It's just the law of thermodynamics. Those things are going to break down over time. So they're going to come down in value.
The longest term loan for a house in the early 1900s was 5 years. That was the longest a bank would lend against a house because they depreciated, because the Federal Reserve hadn't yet fucked everything up. The only reason that we have 30-year mortgages is because the Ponzi scheme has to continue. That's it. That's it. Like you said, Anton, these are consumer goods. My house gets worth less every year because it's falling apart every year. Every time it rains, every time it floods, every time it snows, whatever. I got to fix it. It's more expensive. The only reason that these things are going up is because it is the mechanism by which they enact slavery upon the population.
Is Bitcoin headed for max pain? I think the answer is yes, but I don't think it's the way people expect. I think max pain is Bitcoin skyrocketing to Samson Mao's $1 million and then coming down and just wrecking everybody the whole way down and going to like 50 or something absolutely stupid. And the reason I think that is because everybody's going to think that they're a genius for 5 seconds. And then the other side of it is everybody's going to be just lambasted as a fool when at the end of the day, if you jumped on in that crazy run without an understanding of what you were doing, you were just grabbing the handle of the bus and you got flipped by, that is going to cause you to get wrecked and get into the situation Corey was talking about, where you have less Bitcoin. The move probably won't be as drastic because of the institutions. I don't disagree with that. But that example, I think, is where we actually get, this version of FTX, which is treasury companies going under. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, God, we got to do exactly what Saylor's doing without an understanding of the underlying asset. Hashtag the smarter web company. And you're just going to get to a point where, people are going to see pensions. They're just going to see everything going up and to the right. And they're going to see actually, it's not even up to the right. It's just a straight line up. Like this is what you expect. This is what you're going to get. And everybody's just going to flip out. Like, I got to jump in this thing right now. And I think that in my mind is Max Payne. Is everybody jumping on the lifeboat and basically the boat's going to go under the water for 5 seconds and then it's going to start to sink. And then as soon as enough people pile off, there's still enough buoyancy. It's going to come back up. But Max Payne in my mind is super violent move to the upside where a lot of people get on leverage in every other way. And then they just get absolutely wrecked because they don't understand what they're holding on to.
I think that already happened in 2017, 2020, 2021, such that everybody in the world already knows about Bitcoin. It's not a new novel thing that they're going to get fooled into aping into and buying. The novelty of it has passed, and most people just don't have that much excess money right now. Like 2021, 2020, that was just such a completely different thing because they were literally fucking giving out money for free. Trillions of it. I guess we could talk about I'd be curious your guys' opinion on what the likelihood of this new treasury strategy is of causing the next major bear. I don't really have a strong opinion on it, but it makes sense to me that these companies could be the thing that causes the next major, leveraged, cascading leverage down, forced liquidation bear market.
When you said treasury companies, I was thinking, for some reason in my head, I was thinking the new Federal Reserve chair, not treasury companies, because Trump is saying that he's going to fire Jerome Powell, which I didn't think that the president had the ability to do it. Anyway.
He can't. He can't.
Yeah, there will be treasury companies that fail. No question about it. Treasury companies are a shitcoin. If you're a Bitcoiner, buy Bitcoin. Don't buy shares in a treasury company. That's my opinion. My opinion is that Bitcoin is for individuals. There are going to be treasury companies that just do absolutely retarded, dumb things and lose their private keys or get hacked, and they're going to go bankrupt. That's bound to happen.
Who do you?
So
okay, wait. Weird, crazy, ridiculous question here. Who do you guys think is going to be the first CEO of a publicly traded company to disappear with the private keys of that company's Bitcoin and a massive manhunt goes down? And then the whole regulatory environment has to change. Like, that's for sure going to happen. So
if you don't think that's going to happen, you have not been paying attention. There's been so much of that over the entire history of Bitcoin. There was so many crazy stories like that. So go ahead. I want to hear you.
But of a publicly traded company that tells its investors, we're going to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, we're going to do this thing, and then just takes the keys and disappears.
I'll do you another one. Sorry to jump in. I'll do you another one. How likely do you think it is that the 172,000 Bitcoin that the U.S. government has seemingly misplaced, based on what we learned today from the U.S. Marshal's office, that they were not sold because they would have had to announce it, but somebody just procured them and ran away with them? I think it's probably more likely that there's a shit ton of text threads going like, oh shit, today than there is, the U.S. government, accidentally sold them. I think it's actually probably more likely somebody just like walked away because like, oh, people don't understand Bitcoin. This was probably like 5 or 10 years ago. They're like, oh, people don't know what this is. Oh, that thumb drive just fell in the trash can. Oh no, I'm going to Cabo forever.
The question I have is, we know this came from the U.S. Marshal Service, but certainly the U.S. Marshal Service is not the only entity in the United States federal government that holds the keys to Bitcoin. So is this just the Marshal Service, or are they actually saying that the Marshals hold every sat that the federal government owns?
My understanding is that I don't know the answer. I'll grok it here in a second. But my understanding is that the Treasury doesn't have a vehicle set up for that, and so because it's a physical asset, it's held with the Marshals versus being held at Treasury.
Well, then,
my
I mean, for sure, some of that's been stolen. But hey, this is an immutable public ledger, so we'll find out.
I'll find out though. I'm grokking it right now because
If
Grok
it-
knows everything, right?
If it was sent, if it was sent to exchanges and auctioned off, because it's like the U.S. Marshal, they auction shit, right? I mean, this is like they have a common protocol for this stuff. They take property, they auction it that's been confiscated. So that'll be, I would imagine that information would be quite easy to figure out here in the next couple of days for somebody sleuthing.
These people are not dumb. I mean, if they were to find some cartel member with $1 billion in $100 bills, you don't think they're going to pocket some of it? They probably would. So you remember when Ross Ulbricht was caught by FBI agents. So Ross Ulbricht was given a life sentence. Ross Ulbricht is out of jail, but you know who's in jail? 2 FBI agents who were on that case. They stole, I think they stole Bitcoin. You'd have to look this up too. I don't know exactly what they did, but I'm pretty sure that they stole some of the Bitcoin. And so this is common. Bitcoin is essentially the new cash.
Wasn't one of them for the entrapment where they tried to get him in on a murder plot, and they tried to do a sting and it turned out to be entrapment? I think they got one of them for that.
Yep.
There's a good book on it.
It's
American Kingpin.
It's super. If you ask Grok about this, it's super confusing. Grok can't even tell you. It's like, did Ross Ulbricht actually try to get a hitman to kill somebody? And they're like, it's kind of inconclusive. It's a little hard to figure this out.
I just imagine there's going to be a Ross video like 20 years from now, just like that. One guy who walks up to like the Italian looking dude on the beach. He's just like, hey, what's your body count? And it's like, you definitely know that guy doesn't understand what that is. And he pauses and he's like, 3. And then just like the Godfather music starts playing. It's going to be one of those things like Ross isn't paying attention. And they're going to be like, the new word for body count in 20 years. But he's like, I have no idea. He's like, oh yeah, like 2. Be great.
But I back to the leveraged, I don't think that I mean, I'm a fucking idiot, so I don't know, but I don't see how we get the price of Bitcoin super, super high here from a leveraged perspective without massive corporates just borrowing against their current balance sheets. That's the kind of stuff that's like money printing fervor, where there's a little mania and then a couple people get liquidated because they go too far, and then we have the cascading liquidations. But if that doesn't really happen, we could just see this like nom 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 chomp 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 chomp. We're at 400K in 4 years or something.
It's really important when we talk about this stuff to reiterate the fact that there's only 21 million Bitcoin. So no matter how corporations want to leverage debt to try to procure Bitcoin, there's still only 21 million. And on top of that, there's usually only about 2 million that are even available to purchase. And so we talk in these fiat terms where money is essentially infinite. You can leverage as much debt as you want, but you can't buy as much Bitcoin as you want. And so this is just more evidence that there's going to be further pressure to make the price go higher and higher and higher as demand increases. Think when nation states start getting involved. Like right now, there's only a few nation states that have tried to buy any massive amount of Bitcoin. Max Kaiser's talked about this in the past, that the first country that completely hyperinflates their currency to just buy as much Bitcoin as possible wins. When that starts happening, crazy stuff could happen to the price.
I don't, I'll take the other side of that just for the interesting argument. Like, I don't see sovereigns being the primary driver of Bitcoin price. I'm not saying they're not going to drive it. I don't think that they're ever going to be the primary driver. And part of that is because the private debt markets, debt markets for public companies and private companies are absolutely gigantic. You know, like the government printing money is still kind of pales in comparison to how much debt is out there. Bonds, corporate bonds, treasuries, things like that. So corporates drive more money creation. And the other thing is the legal structure around a company, around a country, to go buy a bunch of Bitcoin. Like this is like even El Salvador. Like what is Bukele going to do with his Bitcoin? What are the internal rules that dictate the process by which you either borrow against it or you spend it for public works processes or whatever? The legal structures for this shit don't exist yet. And there might be some like pissant country that, you know, decides to, you know, print their own currency, of which there just really aren't that many, to go buy a bunch of Bitcoin. But like, that's going to like be good for that country. Like that doesn't mean that country is well organized or has a culture of organization or can effectively do anything with it in the first place. Like, okay, cool. They got a bunch of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. What the fuck are they going to do with it?
Yeah, I think I'm with you to an extent, Zach, because, but I think what we lose sight of is how much bigger the U.S. is than every other country, and the level of wealth that we have. Like, Apple is bigger than most countries. So like the top end of the U.S. corporate market can drive like multiple orders of magnitude more price action than El Salvador's entire economy can. And that's true of a lot of countries. So to me, it's if the sovereigns start doing it in a way that knocks the dominoes down to the point where China or the EU or the US gets involved, then to me, sovereigns are really interesting. But if it's El Salvador to Turkey to Venezuela to Colombia to Argentina to Zimbabwe, like the places that are in max pain with their own currencies right now, or Nigeria overthrows their government, they do it. Nigeria is enormous, but they have no economic significance whatsoever. You could combine all of them. You could combine the massive, the biggest buying that all of those countries combined could possibly do, and it's like a quarter for one of the Magnificent Seven. So it's interesting in the sense that it could, it could create a floor. I just don't see it in the short term driving it up.
There's so much more drama coming. I love it. I'm a filmmaker, from a story perspective, just thinking about one of these shithole countries, if they were to go buy as much Bitcoin as they can, and then there was a military coup or just somebody went and stole it. Like, I want to say that Bukele locked up a ledger in an actual safe with something like 5,000 Bitcoin on it, or $5 billion. I forget what it was. It's some number. I don't know what, some number. It's a lot of Bitcoin. And he put it on a little ledger device and locked it in a safe. What if somebody cracks that safe and runs off with it and takes it out of the country? There's so much of that stuff is going to happen. It kind of excites me. I'm like, ooh, what's going to happen? What's the next thing?
Yeah. And it's going to dictate policy, and maybe some of these things are manufactured so that the state can create, less than advantageous regulations around how governments are able to custody and spend and use and borrow against. But you said something, Anthony, that, man, it was so succinct, and I think it's just a great meme. Bitcoin is for individuals. It could be that Bitcoin is rat poison for anything larger than a certain corporate size. It could be that because of the fallibility of the individual, it could be that Bitcoin just is incompatible with large institutions, large bureaucracies that don't have accountability baked into the structure of the institution.
Can I give you a max pain for those? Because we haven't really covered how do the corporations feel pain with it, right? Is there a scenario where they start buying Bitcoin because they see it as a growth asset, but the growth of Bitcoin starts to level out and we start to see it just returning it to reality? And then all of the corporations get a spotlight shown on them because if the Bitcoin that they're holding isn't going up in value, then they have to do what they were supposed to do as a company in the first place, which is make a product that creates actual value, right? They actually have to do work. I think the max pain for the corporations, even the ones that buy Bitcoin, maybe especially so, are that they're going to have to figure out how to make products again and deliver goods and services that actually create value for the world, and they can't do financial chicanery. Like, you ever seen the graph of how much corporate profit went into buybacks in the past 10 years? It's just, it was never a thing before. And all of a sudden, it's like, one of the guys on the All In podcast said it well. He's like, as a company, you do a buyback when you don't know what else to do with your money. And it's basically all Apple's been doing with its excess cash. It's got most of their profit is just in cash. And what do? They just pump their own stock price with buybacks. It's literally just, and then all that does is allow them to sell their stock if they want the cash in the future, which is it's a Ponzi scheme. Like, that's such a Ponzi scheme. And then everyone who's holding Apple stock is like, all right, 10% this month. But they didn't do anything. They didn't make a new product. They didn't sell more product. They literally just pumped their own stock price. That's the nonsense that has to go away.
Well, we could also end up in a situation where you get, like you say, Corey, Bitcoin is going to drive competition, and at some point you're going to have to be the best at doing what you do, or you're not going to survive. That's what this comes down to. We have to abide by the laws of physics again, and we have to be efficient and productive again. So there's going to be, by a matter of logic, there's going to be a shitload of companies that just they're basically zombie companies. They're going to try to do this Bitcoin thing. They're going to try to pump their stock for the short term, but ultimately they're not creating a product anybody gives a damn about. And all of those metrics are going to take a massive dump. Their MNAV is going to be negative or whatever, below 1, and they're just going to get bought out. Like, those companies are going to get bought out, not for what they do as companies, but because they have a bunch of Bitcoin on their balance sheet that's at a discount.
Yep. It'll be their only value. And for MicroStrategy, because they're first, that'll be fine. They've got plenty of value. But what about there's going to be a whole host of corporations that jump on this late and realize we haven't actually created real value. And like, you ever seen the S&P 500 for the last 25 years versus controlled for money printing, controlled for M2 supply? It's a flat line. It's insane.
I think the Max Payne thing you guys are talking about is actually not even just the corporate thing, though. It's going to be cultural. We're going to see a cultural moment of Max Payne where culture as we know it and purpose are going to have to be tied to providing actual value, and not just being an administrator, not just being a manager, not just being a paper pusher, not just being somebody who's like ideating. Like, ideas are cheap. Like, every 5 seconds, I'm getting 5, 10, 15, 20 new ideas from other people, let alone the ones that I'm generating myself. And then they're like, you could do this. And I'm like, I could, but that's not helpful. Like, what I need is actual progress and action. And I think that's what we're going to see is, as you said, these corporations are going to be forced into actually like doing things again. But I think the way in which that happens is, they're going to hit the brick wall of consequences. And the brick wall of consequences, you can't just buy your own Ponzi anymore. You can't just pump your own bags, because guess what? There is no more pumping that's going to be happening. Right now, you have a deflationary asset that is now the new base layer. And by the way, what that means is if you are decreasing in the value you're providing, you are decreasing in your own value as well.
The dildo of consequence will be pumping, and it is definitely not lubed.
I knew that's what you were thinking. I knew it. JD's pouring his heart out, and Zach was just waiting to say dildo. I knew it.
Of consequence. Dildo of consequences. JD's
Yeah.
point is well taken.
The Great American
YouTube
Challenge.
short greatest hit
Great American
just
Challenge.
dropped.
Look, I got to pump up your numbers, guys. You need way more retarded shit going on right now.
I love it. Hey, I will say you have the best short, which was your prepare your anus.
Yeah.
It was so good.
You got to send me that one. I haven't looked at it.
It was so good.
Now the new short is the dildo of consequence will not be lubed, or whatever.
The
you said.
dildo of consequence will be pumping.
Well, hey, maybe that's a good segue to read. We have one comment.
Oh, here we go.
Saying that we just need to wait for ISM to go above 50 and then altcoin season. I'm expecting Bitcoin to go stagnant and dip, and for altcoins to run. I feel there's a pretty big dildo of consequence waiting for this gent.
What's
as much
ISM?
as,
Somebody tell me what ISM means. International Shitcoin Mobile. What is this?
you're probably not wrong, Robert, but I'm also, oh, is that Robert?
Oh
funny.
no, Baden.
But I do think we're gonna get to a moment
Supply Institute
where-
of Supply Management. Okay, got it.
Okay, you're probably not wrong, Robert.
Got it.
I think the person who actually I think has been the best on all of this, from my take, has been Income Sharks. I don't know if you guys have followed that guy on X, but guy or girl, I have no idea. It's just a shark. But it's a really
Shark
good
Tank,
investment shark. But actually, this is the exact same thesis actually that Income Sharks has, and Income Sharks has been pretty spot on about their calls. And they're like, all right, next is ETH, and then ETH pumped what 15% today, and so it's like they're just like, and then it's like after ETH, guess what's coming is altcoin season. So I think I'm hoping and I'm optimistic that we're gonna get a little bit more of a Bitcoin pump before that, or we're just gonna see freaking chaos because again, like I did do a quick research, and the U.S. Marshals is where Bitcoin was traditionally custodied prior to 2025 with the executive order. Is it would be at a different agency, but then they would move to custody at the U.S. Marshals because they have the auction opportunity, so they have the way to move it out of the government in their org. But it'll be interesting to see if their ledger is the only ledger of actual Bitcoins on the books, because Treasury was supposed to create something after the executive order in January, February, whenever it was. Did they, and was anything transferred to them? We don't know.
So read the ISM comment again, now that I know what it means.
I'll put it up.
Not
our Robert.
For the ISM to go above 50. I'm expecting. I don't understand macro well enough to. So, is that saying that things are getting more expensive from supply, like manufacturing? Shit gets, like John Deere is now more expensive. Caterpillar.
I think that's the. I don't know. We can ask. We'll ask the Grok, but.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get, okay. So all of that hypothetically, like, it just kind of comes down to, I do think that I don't think that the halving is relevant anymore. I think it's like not relevant. It's not enough supply for it to matter.
I disagree, actually. I disagree specifically because the most important aspect of that is going to be the miners. I think it's actually not necessarily going to be an impact on the monetary aspect of it, but it's going to be more an impact on the mining profitability aspect of it. And so I think what's going to be interesting is to see, once institutions level off, is then what happens when it starts to be what starts to happen when the biggest piece is actually the fee structure on the backside. Lightning's going to have an impact on that. All these L2s are going to have an impact on that. But it's going to be really, really interesting to see as we start getting to a place where sovereigns are actually, doing their transactions settled final in Bitcoin. How much paper Bitcoin comes out. Because I think the biggest thing is going to be how much paper Bitcoin, because paper Bitcoin is already in existence. The question is going to be how much paper Bitcoin is going to be tolerated by the system.
What does that have? Wait, what does that have to do with the halving? I'm talking about from a price perspective.
I
don't think the halving is going to impact Bitcoin price.
I think that's because there's just going to be less. Because there's going to be less available new supply. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I just say I do think.
Here's a hot take
for
you.
They're gonna still have a take.
I think governments are going to get in here and they're going to start to mine at a loss. And I'm not sure that the security budget matters at all. Like, we're worried about the fees happening and miners protecting the fees. When a government can come in there and mine Bitcoin at a loss and create their own templates, like, it doesn't even, like, it doesn't matter. Like, no one cares that they're losing money mining. They're not paying for it anyway. The electricity is free, and they're printing money.
That's what Bhutan has been doing.
Right.
Bhutan has been mining at a loss, and they've mined, I don't know, over 8,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody
I
knows
think
who holds it, by the way. Nobody knows what they're doing with it. No Bhutanese have Bitcoin. I know people in Bhutan. They're like, nobody uses it. You can't buy it here.
it's exactly what I was trying to get at earlier. Like all of these sovereign shenanigans for smaller countries, like there's no structure in place. There's no expectation. Like these Bitcoin are just going to be stolen. Like Bitcoin, aside from having the ability to transact, or a first world country like the United States that does have some ability, now I'm not saying it's perfect, but does have some ability to create a regulatory structure around the custody of the asset that is, somewhat visible by the public. Okay, that's one thing. And even then, I'm still not sure what the purpose is other than, hey, we're defending our place on the ledger. But man, Bitcoin really is for individuals. Like having these small little countries own this stuff just means a couple of rich people at the top stole a bunch of money from their population and bought it for themselves or mined it for themselves or whatever. I don't see it as a positive thing.
I agree.
Or just sits there, right? Like uninvested money in the current system, uninvested money that sits in cash or it's essentially useless. It means nothing to the economy. And I could see the country of Bhutan not moving their Bitcoin, just sitting on it, never selling it, mining it a small amount. To me, that's essentially like a lost key. Let me know when someone moves it.
I think the most important thing that we need to do in the next decade is get Saylor to agree to rock, paper, scissors, his own keys to everyone in the world before he dies. So we can pick one champion to play a game of rock, paper, scissors. And if they lose, he can take his keys to a grave. But if they win, we have to find some other fun mechanism to distribute his Bitcoin to the rest of the world. I'm game if he takes it with him, right? But it needs to be fun.
Is that
How
still his plan?
entertaining.
Is he maintaining that he's going to take his keys to the grave?
Yeah, that's his current stance. So either that or he's going to give it to like Natalie Brunell or something like that.
How entertaining would it be, though, if MicroStrategy somehow there was some sort of breach and they lost a huge amount of Bitcoin?
Well, it's just Coinbase. They custody at Coinbase. The only company that custodies their own Bitcoin from one of the large ones and like iBit and everything else like that is Fidelity. Fidelity is the only one that custodies their own Bitcoin. And so we're kind of in this interesting thing about like the black box, the centralization risk that everybody's talking about is Coinbase. Like Coinbase is the problem and they are the new Fort Knox.
I'm of the opinion that Coinbase was basically sanctioned by the US, by the feds. Like they were basically chosen until agencies and, banks went, okay, this one's the winner. They're farthest ahead. We're basically going to capture them. Brian Armstrong is ours. Make him shave his head. Make him do the humiliation ritual.
I mean, his attire is the easiest Mission Impossible mask ever, right? Right? I mean, literally, it's just like we can use the same mask. Oh, we have a mask we screwed up. We can just turn it into a Brian Armstrong head.
Yeah, I think that institution is already entirely captured by the U.S. government. And I think they were given the green light to grow and to do everything they're doing. Like you can't, who knows where the money comes from for them to have grown and succeed and taken market share and do what they're doing. Like this is the problem with money printing. This is the problem with black money. We don't know where it's going or where it came from.
Yeah. That was a term for dark money, by the way. He wasn't talking specific about the color of the money.
Less exposed. Dimly lit.
But I think I have to jump. So if we have anything else, maybe we can maybe wrap up. Anybody have any last thoughts?
I just think Corey wins for the coolest background.
This castle was built by the Maltese Knights about 1,000 years ago, and now it is an apartment that I stay in southern Italy.
That's awesome.
Legend.
So
G.
I could lose all my Bitcoin and probably still be all right.
You probably will. They're going to steal it from you in your sleep. It was definitely Freemasons.
Best pizza of my life yesterday for €6.
So good.
Fuck.
All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for joining in. See you next time.
Deuces.
Thanks for tuning in to Better by Bitcoin. Bitcoin makes everything better. Like, subscribe, and follow us on X at BetterBYBTC, YouTube at BetterBYBitcoin. Not financial advice, mathematical certainty.